So would you say overall the motion on a BIOROWER is suitable if you have back issues but you want to do rowing?
Not only that, it's even one thing more. The motion on the BIOROWER, if you do it correctly, is good if you have problems with the back.
So welcome everybody, my name's Aram, I'm at the BIOROWER workshop, and today I got a special guest. It's Charley Thora from Munich. Charley is a BIOROWER owner. He's actually not a rower, started to row late, started on a linear erg, I'm not going to name the American brand. We wanted to discuss the effect on the back. So linear erg versus BIOROWER. What it is from a medical point of view, because Charley is a medical doctor. So who's better suited than him to talk about it? So Charley, thank you very much for being here.
Welcome.
Tell me your story. How your rowing specific story. How did it start, and what is your impression now that you know both worlds?
I took up rowing because of some health issues. I needed to get back in shape after some injuries and a heart illness that I had. And I picked up rowing because rowing is the sport that uses more than, I think, 86% of all your musculature in the body. And it's also strength endurance, which is something that I like very much, because the sheer endurance things like bike riding do not suit me very much. Running, I'm weighing close to 100 kilo, is not very healthy for me. Walking simply was too boring, and I always was fascinated by this calm movement of rowing, especially the rowers on the lake in the morning hours, mirror glass lake, and they're rowing very calmly with this thing. I love this attitude. So I started rowing with linear ergs. Two different ones I had, one that has some water in it, and the other one which is used in all the commercial gyms. The rowing is not very comparable to the real rowing on a BIOROWER. If you go to the catch in a linear erg, everything goes forward. On the BIOROWER, you go out, and this out opens up here. It simply gives the lungs more air. It's complete different movement. One thing for me is the psychological thing. It's really like moving in a boat. You're going out, you're pulling inwards and pulling outwards compared to this linear pulling. The other thing is the health issues that I encounter with a lot of friends or clients of mine, because the rowing can be very bad for the back if you don't do it with a very proper posture. And the linear ergs, they have a tendency that you fall into this bad posture. Because on the linear erg, your arms go out in front of you and you stretch out the shoulder and you want to reach length. So you bend over your thoracic spine. And your thoracic spine is supposed to have a slight curvature like this. And if you bend it too much, if these are the shoulders, you change the pressure system inside the spinal column, and especially in the discs. Our spinal column is designed to withstand vertical load if the posture is proper. And the posture of the spinal column is something we call a double S thing. So if this is the head and there's the nose, the spine in the neck takes a curvature in the front, then it comes out, the thoracic spine goes backwards, the lumbar spine goes in the front, the sacrum goes back once again. And this is able to withstand such movements because nerves do not like to get shaken. Everybody has experienced it with the elbow. And the one system of compensating the pressure is this double S feature. And the other system is that in between each vertebrae we have the discs. The discs are like rubber dampers. They consist of a fibrous material in the outside. In the middle is sort of a gelatinous liquid, and then there's a little nucleus inside. And usually if you have a load, vertical load, the disc gets compressed, squeezes out a little bit of the liquid, and if you relax or if you stretch up again, it goes up. So for example, after a heavy weight session, you can shrink down to around about 4 or 5 centimeters. People who work with physical loads are around about 1 to 2 inches taller in the morning than in the evening, which is completely normal if the load is vertical. And the problem with the rowing, especially on the linear ergs, is if you stretch out in front, you exaggerate the curvature in the spine. And the other thing is, usually in almost all commercial gyms, the resistance is cranked up way too high. And the people have this idea of you have to have a very hard catch. And this is exactly, you have this, the vertebrae that stand not in the correct position, but in this correct position, and then you exceed maximum load. This leads to imbalance in pressure. The front part of the vertebrae has laid way more pressure than the back part. I know it from the neck. It has been examined. For each inch that your head moves forward, the pressure on the front side of the disc increases to by 15 pounds. And 4 inches, especially today with the people who are always looking downwards, working on a computer or looking down at the handies, at the mobiles, you have an increased, like 10 centimeters or 4 inches is not very much. So you have constant pressure of 60 pounds on the front side. Same thing with the thoracic spine. But while rowing, the pressure is way higher because you are pulling against the legs. The legs are very, very strong muscles, and if you go full force with the legs, then the pressure amounts to a couple of 100 pounds, and it is repetitive. If you, for example, take one of the endurance sessions, like 1 hour, and you have, let's say, 20 strokes, then you have 20 strokes per minute, 60 minutes. This is 1,200 times that you are compressing the spine. And this, especially if you're not watching out what you're doing with your spine, quite dangerous. On the BIOROWER, you have the advantage that you have to, when you go into the catch, you have to move out, which immediately pulls you, lifts the thoracic spine a little bit. You can also row with bad posture on the BIOROWER, but for me the interesting thing is I get problems with the air. If I'm bending over, I don't have enough space to breathe. So I automatically open up my chest, which gives the column in a better place. The other thing, which is still, but also better than on a linear erg, is the lumbar spine. Because I think on the BIOROWER, this rocking over is way easier to do on a BIOROWER than on the linear erg. Also, once again, because you move out, you have this circular motion, which is also less taxing for the spine, because you distribute the load also along the latissimus dorsi and not everything around the this spinal, the erector spinae is the name of the muscle, that the two muscle strands that sits beneath the thoracic bone, the vertebral column. And this is, for me, way better to achieve on a BIOROWER than on a standard linear erg.
Mm-hmm. So would you say overall the motion on the BIOROWER is suitable if you have back issues but you want to do rowing?
Not only that, it's even one thing more. The motion on the BIOROWER, if you do it correctly, is good if you have problems with the back, because you train the muscles in a proper way. You don't overload the spine, but you train the muscles in the back and all things, like 86%, and you train them, which gives you more resilience to everyday stress. So I would even say that rowing, if done properly, is very good. The problem is that, especially when you look at these CrossFit people, when they are rowing, like they crank up the resistance up to 10 and it's go as hard as you can, because they do everything as hard as they can, and which is not a very healthy thing in the long run. And I have a couple of friends who are doing this high intensity stuff like CrossFit, and it's injuries waiting to happen.
Puff goes the disc in other CrossFit games.
Yeah, you have this tiny little noise that the disc makes when it's bulging, and then it's like, and then it makes, it goes off. Actually, you can hear it. You really hear a popping sound when the disc pops. The people who have a popping disc describe it like that. It makes a tiny thing.
That's interesting. One of the reasons why I ask is that about 50% of our customers are private individuals. And I would say the majority is at least 55 years old or older. And when we ask them, why did you get a BIOROWER? Because it's significantly more expensive than anything else. It's always fun. Health is number one, fun is number two, and the independence to do something that is healthy and beneficial until they're stone old.
Yeah.
Is that a justified reason to invest significantly more money into a BIOROWER than into a linear erg?
This was my reason. That's exactly the thing. I am 60 years of age right now. I have some health issues. I'm lacking a disc in the lumbar spine, and I'm having lots of other health issues. And I wanted to do something for my health. And it's also this typical back pain that I had when sitting at the desk for a couple of hours. It's not existent anymore. Okay, I'm rowing very much right now because I'm rowing every day and doing it. Of course, it justifies it. On the other hand, you know, we in Germany, we are quite car crazy, and the fun thing always is there are people having no problems investing like 20 or 30,000 euros into extra Sonderausstattung, I don't know how you call it, extras.
Add-ons.
On the cars, add-ons. Especially with the German cars, who have a very long list of add-ons.
Of extras, yeah,
and
you can pay a lot.
And it's to spend 15,000 euros on extras is not very much, even for a middle-class car. You can do it very easily.
Yeah,
and
right.
in a car, you're sitting like maybe an hour a day in Germany. And the other health stuff, it's, yeah, if you go on a vacation with the family, that's a BIOROWER. Feel like maybe not a pro, but it's a BIOROWER.
Yeah.
The other thing is it simply does not break. The other ones I had, okay, the linear erg with the water has a problem with the water in the tank and with the mechanics. And the other one I had, well, okay, it's not that cheap and you can get extra part and it's quite sturdy, but you have to do a lot of maintenance in order to keep it properly. You have to clean all the fans all the time, especially as I'm coming from Munich, which is very dusty where I'm living. There's a lot of pollution in the air. So you have to clean the
fan housing,
the fan
or the air
housing
fan.
very often. And the other thing is, it's the movement on a linear erg is completely different than the movement on a BIOROWER. The movement is more fluid for me. It's more whole body movement than the more simple linear pulling. And the other thing, which for me is very, very important, is that with the BIOROWER, you have an instant feedback on the force curves where you can exactly see what you're doing wrong, like my wobble at the start, but you can see everything and you can correct it immediately. And everything you do immediately and with a super, super high precision. On the concept, you also have the force curve, but the force curve is not corresponding to the real thing. It's It's not measured, it's arithmetic, it's calculated, and this one is measured. You can, when you sit on the BIOROWER and you make the tiniest movement, immediately the first curve jumps, which is something that...
Yeah, that's the strain gauge right here.
It's quite annoying for me because you see every mistake that you're doing, you can see very properly. But maybe I could show what I mean with the posture on the BIOROWER compared. No, we don't have a linear erg here, but just to compare it, to show it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could. Okay, so my posture now is very, very upright, but this is the, so to say, correct posture for the vertebral column. If you are on a linear erg and you try to get length, you not only go forward with the shoulders. When I go now, move my spine is staying in the same position, it's the shoulders. But what you always are doing is you're bending over like this. And when you're bending over like this, and I keep the thoracic spine and get up, you see that I'm like the hunchback of Notre Dame sitting here. This is an enormous load on the front side of the vertebrae, which squeezes the disc to the back. The next thing is that on the linear erg, you have the tendency to start very hard with the legs, which immediately, you have no buffering motion with the arms, immediately goes into compression of the vertebral spine. So usually what you should do on the linear erg is sit very upright like this, which is something I've never seen any rower do in the long run, if they do it for a longer time. The second thing is, if you go to the catch, in a linear erg, everything goes forward. On the BIOROWER, you go out. And this out opens up here and simply gives the lungs more air, which for me is quite important as I have a lung disease, but also for health reasons, it's just very important that you open up, and then when you start, go back. And this movement, once again, it feels like sitting on a tank, as we say in German. This is wie ein Panzer. It's not the other linear ergs, they feel quite flimsy. You're pulling on a chain or on a rubber band. This one is like... And you can immediately hear, even without the feedback, you can hear whether you're getting this the right acceleration. Movement is way, way more comfortable and feels for me more natural than on the linear erg.
All right, Charlie, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think that's excellent advice. What is important for me is that this is not like, hey, please tell me it's great, because I like to get straight feedback. So I can't expect that the BIOROWER is perfect, but we aim to make it as perfect as we humanly can. So your feedback is extremely valuable for us.
I am like the other half of your clients. I'm one of the who's a little bit older, who wants to do something for the health, especially for the back, for the posture. I'm sitting the whole day at my desk talking to people. I need something else. And this is the other thing. Real rowing is extremely difficult to manage or to integrate in a life. You need hours of preparation, driving something too. I have the BIOROWER in a special room in my practice. I'm ready in 5 minutes to go there. I can, if I want to, go for a high intensity session, like 15 minutes in the lunch break, if I want to, or I can make an easy, relaxed, okay, but a longer row in the evening. And it's like rowing in a real boat. And of course, my aim for the long run, is to row on a real boat. But this is there where I am living, it's not that easy possible to integrate in a regular life. This is usually rowers have done more than 80% of people before the rest of the world gets up. Still what they usually say, because they are rowing at 6 o'clock in the morning. problem for us, if I row at 6 o'clock in the morning, then I have to go back into the city again, which is impossible. Because of the traffic, I can't not do it simply. If you go rowing, I have a couple of friends who are rowers. They go on the lake one time, or if they're on vacation, 2 times a week, which is not enough for me for training. And the other thing is that the movement on the BIOROWER is basically like in a boat. You can use it, what you learn there. You cannot use very much the movement from a linear erg in the boat. As far as, okay, with me when I'm rowing, everything is a little bit more dangerous and wobbly, but nevertheless.
You've set your BIOROWER to be unstable. Your Pro is unstable, isn't it?
My Pro is, it depends on the most, because right now I'm trying to correct the technical issue that I'm having, which is still from the linear ergs, starting too hard with the legs. So I made it easy, which is also something. I can adjust it. Right now I'm saying I have a couple of like 1 or 2 months where I want to achieve something technically, so I make it easy for me. I adjust it, I make it stable. When I want to make it more into the meditative stuff, I set it to loose, because then you need to be very much, or you need to work way more with your body and your proprioceptors than I'm rowing with closed eyes, for example, when it's unstable. And it's very funny and also quite challenging not to get too frustrated when something rowing like 45 degrees. Yeah. So on the lake, I think I would almost drown or make tiny little circles.
Actually not. It's much easier then to stabilize a boat.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can simply put out the oars. But this is also something that for me is very interesting, that the movement requires quite a lot of strength and energy, but it looks, if you watch these professional rowers do their steady state pieces, they are rowing with like 250, 300 watts, and it looks nothing at all like it. It looks very calm, very relaxed. The rhythm, this vroom, 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 vroom. This is something that for me is almost has a meditative nature.
Yeah, it certainly has. Yeah. Excellent, Charlie. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
And you are officially the first interview partner in this new setup. Excellent.
If you want to see more and learn more, stay tuned to the BIOROWER podcast.